while in a meeting, you can ask for suggestions or feedback. And again, you can't just be addressing people like, what about you? Or, and you. You should be using appropriate cliche phrases for when in the meeting. Let's take a look at these phrases, and you can pick the ones that you like the most. I would suggest 2 or 3, and use them in your next meeting. Here is a list. I couldn't agree with you more, which means I agree. I completely agree. Could I just say one thing here? If I could just come in here, I would just like to add, may I come in here, please? Sorry, could you speak up a little, please? I can't hear you at the back. If I could have a chance to speak for a moment, please? I'm glad you brought that up. I would like to add, I'm afraid I'd have to disagree with you on that. I would like to say that, excuse me for interrupting. I really feel that the way I see things, in my opinion. Again, as you can see, I have highlighted the most interesting phrases for you to remember and to pay attention to. Another thing that you have probably noticed that all of these sentences are very polite. We use the word please a lot. We use some other words that show our polite tone, like may and etc. Remember, there is no such thing as to be extra polite in English. This is just the type of a communication of an English speaker. Even if in Ukrainian and in Russian, we can use imperative tone at work, telling people what to do. In English, we do not use imperative tone when telling people what to do. We ask people to do something. What happens when you don't understand something? Please, don't just sit there and be afraid to ask. You should ask for clarifications. But of course, you may be still sitting there because you don't know how to ask for clarifications. Well, we're going to teach you how to ask for clarifications. And again, here is a list of useful phrases that you can use when you would like the speaker to clarify what they are talking about. Let's take a look. I don't quite follow you. What exactly do you mean? I don't see what you mean. Could you elaborate, please? I'm afraid I don't quite understand what you're getting at. Could you please explain to me how this is going to work? Do you mean that? So what you're saying is that, and you can repeat what the person has just said. Did you say, didn't you? You can use tag questions to clarify some information. Could you spell that, please? If you're on the phone, for example, would you mind spelling that for me, please? Is that what you mean? And you repeat something in other words. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. Interestingly, we don't use the word understand so many times as we would use in our native language. In English, people don't say, I don't understand, or I didn't understand as often as we would think they would. Instead, they would say, I don't follow you, or I didn't quite get that. So try to move away from saying, I don't understand, or I understand. If you want to sound like a native speaker, you have to say, I don't follow you, I don't get it. Or you can say, I got it, if you understood something. It looks like we have discussed a lot. So this is the time to close our meeting. And again, special phrases to close the meeting. It's not enough just to say, okay, that's it, goodbye. It all depends on what your meeting was about. But I'm sure that you have to summarize, you have to ask for questions, and you have to close the meeting and thank your audience. So let's take a look at phrases that you can use in the end of your meeting, that I'm going to use in the end of my meeting with you today. So you can close the meeting by saying, if there are no other comments, I'd like to wrap this meeting up. It looks like we've finished ahead of schedule, so let's finish up here. I'm afraid we're going to have to cut this meeting short. I've just been informed of an urgent matter that needs to be dealt with immediately. I'm afraid we'll have to end this meeting here. Let's rearrange and continue this discussion another time. Thank you all for your input today. Thank you for your participation. Let's end this here, shall we? I'm sure you all have other important work to get back to. If anyone has any further questions, I would like to give you any feedback privately, then please feel free to email me. Sorry, could I please have your attention for one more moment? I forgot to say. Again, you may find some really cool phrases to use in your daily meetings. So now you're all equipped to call a meeting, to actually schedule a meeting, to schedule if necessary, to push the meeting back to a different time. You know what to do with your agenda. You know that you need to prepare your agenda. You can allocate the roles in your meeting. You can ask the person to take minutes. You can ask for suggestions or feedback. You can ask for clarifications. And also you know how to close the meeting. But if you still have some questions, shoot me an email.